close? Are we?
That works.
Cool, we've listening works? Great. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we're using a new blender for 2.5 for Sintel. Was a bit of a challenge, but there's a lot of things that were different and that worked a lot better for us. So we're going to go over a lot of what we had challenges with, what worked really nicely, and how we went through from basically a layout that Colin had provided for us in this very basic form, the whole film, and we would then take that and take it through the stages to the final shots that you see in the film. Does it work?
No, it's good.
Oh, now we're going to get Blender going. Yeah, something that we did a lot while we were animating in Sintel was every morning we would do an animation daily.
So what I might do is go and get our custom Sintel DVD and get a version of Blender that we can actually.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, because the problem is that the blender on
shared.
it will work, but it's trying to load it from a disk that's not on this computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, a network disk thing.
Okay.
Okay, so what?
Does anyone have a Sintel disk?
Yeah.
You want?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Hey.
Okay, so while we're getting all that sorted, I suppose we'll talk about the workflow that we all had during the
You
project.
have to sign it.
I'll save you. Yeah, basically there was us three and William, who isn't here today, unfortunately. But we're the animators on Jury. And basically the workflow that we had was at the start of every day we would do animation dailies, which was we'd render out OpenGLs or just quick little play blasts of all the animation that we did, and we watched that. We'd go into the viewing room, and each morning we'd all watch it together and just critique each other's work, like giving each other feedback, or towards the end of the project just picking it apart, it's been absolutely brutal. And because of that, like the amount of times we were polishing the scene, sometimes you just become so blind to it that the amount of times you watch it, you just can't see it. So it requires the fresh eyes of other animators. So that's why So yeah, the animation dailies for that helped quite a lot. And we all have very different styles of animating. There's some of us were using pose to pose, as in we'll set out the key poses and then flesh out everything in between it. Then some of us were using straight ahead animation, basically animating it as you go, just make the pose, couple keyframes, make the pose, just basically as it sounds, because it's sort of like stop motion. And what I think we're planning to do is load up the Sintel file, hopefully,
Working on it.
and show you some of these styles. I think today we're going to do first pose, and then tomorrow we'll do the exact same thing, but using straight ahead animation, just to give you an idea of how it's all done. And there's no right or wrong way. It's really about preference and what the job is at the time. Like, some sort of scenes require you to do pose to pose, just so you can have the better planning and the better timing. And sometimes it's better to go straight ahead animation, especially in a production environment where you need to get something done really, really quickly, because straight ahead seems to be, for me at least, is a quicker way of animating. It just becomes a bit more of a hassle to tweak it afterwards, so polishing goes towards the end. Pose to pose is a bit better. Success. So with that, I think we can open up the file and start some animation for you.
Hey.
And I just pass it on to Yep.
Alright, so so we're going to aim to have Jeremy just demonstrate some animating during the yes, and I suppose we can also switch between Jeremy animating, and we can butt in and show some shots from the film and break them down for you. There's quite a few different characters that we animate in Sintel. It's a big film. There's a lot of scenes. Whereas something like Big Buck Bunny and Elephant Stream just had 2 characters and some little robotic ducks, or Big Buck Bunny had just a few characters as well. This film seems to have quite a few. We have a huge quest that Sintel goes on, of course, and there's lots of animals that she's fighting. You've got a big fight at the end, and so it really pushed us in terms of as animators, where we had to reference a lot of things. Like I know Nathan I would sometimes look over at his computer and he would just be looking at all these chickens running around and fighting each other and flying about on YouTube, and that's work. So, but what you see out of it is the chicken run, and where Sintel and Scales are chasing the chicken down the alleyway, and the chicken flies up in the air, and there's a lot that goes into getting the animation to look good, and then it's gone in a few seconds. But the hope is that all of it combined comes out great. So we've got Sintel loaded up.
We do.
Let's demonstrate some of the basics. Nathan was really great as our rigger. He came in at the start of the project, and we already had a couple of ideas on how to push 2.5 forward in terms of the animation system. The first thing that we wanted was Euler curves, where in Blender 2.49 and before, you could only animate an armature with quaternion curves, which was the four curves that would handle all of the rotations of the character's bones. Euler is the standard for like Maya and 3ds Max, and it's handy. It has its problems as well. They both have pros and cons. So, but we felt like having the option would be great. So Tom had to think about it, and then the next day he came back and we had both Eulers and quaternion curves in Blender. And not only that, but we could animate switching between them mid-shot, which is something that no other program can do. So that was pretty cool. We got a bit more than we bargained for, and axis angle is there, but I don't even know what they're used for. I guess some of you guys might know a bit more about them than me, but it's there. Now Nathan rigged up Sintel. Initially, what you can see here is the proxy version of Sintel, the one that we would usually use for animating. It started off originally while Angela from early on. She was working on Sintel Space and getting the shape keys and rigging up the face, and so before that time we didn't have the high poly head as you see at the top here. We just had like a box with some 2 faces for eyes, and we began animating with that because we knew we had to start animating early to get through all of the stuff that we were going through. I mean, we were going to be making a 6-minute film here, so it was going to be pretty big. Initially, Nathan came up with some really great ideas. He's added custom bone shapes, as you can see there, and I think they're just done the usual way with like meshes that are hidden, or maybe he had some other way that he was doing it. But basically, you can go in and take the original bone shapes that are there and add your own style to it. So it was really good to have some shapes that were outside of the mesh. Whereas the actual bones are hidden inside, but they're technically inside the mesh, but they just get visualized differently. And then he added these really awesome things called rig layers over the side. It seemed like Nathan was having a real field day with 2.5, that you could really, I don't know too much about it, I'm not much of a programmer, I must admit. But he was really able to access the menus a lot easier and add all this stuff in. So basically what you see there are a bunch of buttons that are named to add, show the body controls and whatnot. And of course, as he's switching them, it's just a shortcut to turning on the colors in the armature options. But that was a real savior that was able to keep us in the 3D view and not really go jumping around to different menus. Yeah, that was really added on for Sintel, but I think we're definitely thinking of ways that we can implement something like this, and many other things that we added to Sintel kind of implements it more within Blender. So that's the hope. So we've got Jez animating away now. First pose? Yeah. Are you able to tell us what you're going to animate?
Any ideas?
Yes, does anyone have any ideas on what we should animate, or what Jez should animate in the next however much time we have?
Some sort of body mechanics thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Do a karate kick.
Karate kick.
That'll work.
Fly kick. That'll work. Actually, before you start, maybe we can demonstrate some of the hinge stuff and pivot modes and whatever. The IK sliders and all the different sliders that we have. Oh yeah, you've already used them. Yeah, you might have seen Joe using these. But we also had some properties that are added in the form of a slider, and depending on which control you select, it's context sensitive. So, for example, you can select the top part of the arm here and the forearm, and you can also select the IK arm itself, and you'll see that control for the IK, and that's animatable as well. So you can slide between it. And a few times we've switched between IK and FK. So, for example, if Sintel was running up some stairs that she does when she's running to the top of the ziggurat building, and she like pushes off with her hand, and initially she's running with FK arms, so you just grab the forearm and move it like so, and then as she puts her hand down on the wall, I was able to just change the slider. And then put the control, the IK control, right on the wall, and that would allow me then to just have that appearance of pushing on and off the wall without grabbing the controls and trying to do it manually. Yeah, that's about that. Actually, maybe try just showing the right-click menu over the sliders. We were able to animate the sliders just by simply right-clicking over it and inserting a keyframe, and then that would show up in the graph editor. So that made it really easy for us to, especially during blocking, get something that worked quickly, and we were able to do some pretty advanced stuff early on just by moving these sliders around, and basically we could stay almost always in the 3D view. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sometimes we would switch between using the action editor that you can see here, or the dope sheet. You're in the dope sheet?
Dope sheet.
Oh, that's cool. So yeah, Jez would use, that's a new thing in 2.5. 2.49 just had the action editor, and that was kind of the only way that you could view multiple bones keys. So now the dope sheet editor is basically the same thing, but you can choose between action editor, which shows all the keys for one armature, and if you switch to dope sheet, then you can view various things, so armature and any other objects that you have animated. I'm just getting lost now watching this. What else? The graph editor is something that's really interesting too. I actually found myself almost never using the dope sheet editor or the action editor, and simply just having the 3D view open and the graph editor, because he's a great animator, really. No, it's interesting. Animation really takes quite a bit of time. In initial planning stages, Tom was like, oh, so we'll do like 10 seconds of animation a week, and then no, I think it was like 5 seconds a day or something.